early on in my teaching career, I became an inclusionist. I'm committed to the full inclusion of learners with disabilities in general education classrooms with their typical peers, typically developing peers, um, with full access to general curriculum and all the needed supports. I did not intend to become an educator. It was just something that organically happened. And so when I went to school at Cal State Fullerton, it's when I was really exposed to this idea of inclusive practices for learners with disabilities. I did my best to create those mechanisms myself. But when you're one person in one school building in a very large district, and not everyone sees the way that you see, it can be difficult. I was asked to apply to be a support specialist. So this person basically supports learners in segregated settings and in inclusive classrooms based on their disability. And I was like, well, maybe I could make a difference there. Maybe if I'm out of the classroom, I can make a difference in my district. And I remember the last interview I had was with our assistant superintendent. So I sat down with her and she's like, okay, Tim, you're going to be at an IEP meeting. And sometimes, there are going to be educators and families who agree with you and your philosophy about inclusive education. And there's some people that aren't. And I'm going to need you to be okay with supporting the school district. And what was I going to say? I so desired to be inclusive, but yet I wasn't able to do the things that I wanted to do. If I wanted to work in special education in the special education department, right, and be a special education teacher with my credential, I had to work in a segregated environment. What also was interesting to me was that I was in meetings where parents wanted segregated settings, and there was nothing that I could do or say that would convince them otherwise. I think parents want their kids to be safe, and they feel like segregated settings are safer, which they're not. I've seen teachers try, and they do their best, right? But my experience, what ends up happening is I would go to support a segregated classroom for, let's say, for autism. And the teacher would say, if we could only get this learner somewhere else, then my classroom would be perfect. There was just recently a research out of the University of Indiana that talked about just outcomes of placement. So the more time learners spent in general education, the higher their scores were. Now you could say it's like, well, those kids were more likely to be included in general education if, because they had less significant disabilities or whatever. But the thing is there's no research that says segregated environments are actually better. So I think that's all you need to know. It's not about including this one learner with really intensive support needs in general education and making it super special for them, right? Because if you keep doing that over and over and over and over again, that doesn't benefit everyone. When we talk about inclusive education, that's what we mean. We mean equity, but not just equity for this one kid. We, equity for all learners. When you hear the struggle of a family, whether they take legal action or not to include their child, it's absolutely heartbreaking that that our system is so messed up that they had to do that. When just a few states over, inclusive practices are the norm.